He created the 7 most ruthless demon kings in the world. However, one of the 7 demon kings, the ancient vampire Amin, has now become a brewer. The legendary Feng Xinyang personally went out to bring customers to the inn for the sake of business. Shui Sanyi, who once treated lives as worthless, now works as a storyteller at the tavern. Even the sole strategist of the 7 demon kings set up a street stall to tell fortunes. All of this happened because their master was still in a coma. However, today, while the maid was wiping the man's body, the man suddenly opened his eyes. Startled, the maid scrambled out to call for help. In no time, a delicate hand pushed open the door. Feng Xinyang immediately jumped onto the man. Realizing her mistake, Feng Xinyang immediately kneeled and begged for forgiveness from the master. Then, Feng Xinyang helped the man to the inn's backyard. Amin, the vampire who was brewing wine, saw the man. He immediately stepped forward to pay his respects to the master. Next, Shui San sat excitedly on the woodcutter Fan Li's shoulder, calling out, "Master, you're finally awake. Little Sanzi greets you." Blind Bei and Zombie King Liangcheng also rushed to the scene after hearing the news. Chi greeted the man, but the man, looking at the various figures before him, felt uneasy inside. It turned out he had once been a critically ill comic artist. The 7 demon kings were merely characters in his comic. Unexpectedly, after his death from illness, he somehow brought them all into this consciousness. At the dinner table, Feng Xinyang raised her glass to celebrate the master's awakening. "From today on, we now have a backbone." The man felt very awkward hearing this. Curiously, he asked, "Have you all been living here and making money for the past 6 months?" Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. They thought he was holding them accountable. After a moment of silence, Blind Bei spoke first. "It turns out that when we first came to this world, it wasn't just the man who fell into a coma. They all became ordinary people as well." The man was utterly shocked. No wonder they were living in this inn. "Where is the demon pill?" Feng Xinyang hurriedly brought a box. The king said he had no physical body. He didn't need food or water. So, he sealed himself inside this stone. After dinner, Amin accidentally broke a bowl. "I intended to heal him with magic. But since I have no power now." But he refused. Even without power, the vampire constitution takes only 3 days to recover. And this scene was just witnessed by the man. The man asked him to come to the backyard for a private talk. However, Amin had no answers when asked. Saying that, he suddenly knelt down. "Although we truly look down on you, we will never abandon you. Without you, our story cannot continue." After saying this, Amin told the man to find Blind Bei. Blind Bei knows more about the surroundings. Just as Amin was leaving, he suddenly realized his hand had healed. After a moment, Blind Bei told the man, "Although the forces from all sides are unstable, this world is quite ordinary. At least, everyone encountered in the past 6 months has been an ordinary person." The man silently pointed at the fierce battle horse outside the door. "Look at that horse, it's the kind that should exist in an ordinary world." Blind Bei gave a slight smile and said, "I'm blind." At night, the man gathered everyone together. "Since we've come to this chaotic world, we must have our own place in this world." Upon hearing the man's decision, Blind Bei immediately started making arrangements. He told Shui San to go to the county office to commit suicide. He sent Bao Fan to find a place to settle down. He would go give a blind massage to the wife of Sun Qing Xiaowei. And Xin Yang was in charge of using Jack's name to trap a fool. To understand this incident, soon after, Feng Xinyang sat by the bed, wearing socks, with a look that was both adorable and soul-stealing. The fool's eyes went wide. At the same time, Liang Cheng brought a jar of wine for the man. The fool's bodyguard shook his head and said, "I don't drink from Liang Cheng." He quickly explained, "You misunderstood. This is a classical script sent in by our storekeeper." The bodyguard glanced at the man. After a moment of silence, he said, "Go in." As soon as the man entered, he saw that the fool had completely lost himself. He exchanged a glance with Feng Xinyang. He suddenly lifted the wine jar and threw it at the bodyguard. The bodyguard didn't have time to react. He was hit squarely. Feng Xinyang, meanwhile, tightly strangled the fool's neck with her sock. At the same time, Amin suddenly leapt in through the window. He thrust a hidden weapon into Yuan Data's neck. Yuan Data instantly collapsed unconscious. At this moment, the guard outside the door reacted. He drew his sword and charged toward the man. Seeing this, Liang Cheng drew his weapon and quickly moved behind him. But the guard was clearly highly skilled. He suddenly spun around. He thrust his sword forward. The blade pressed against Liang Cheng's chest but couldn't penetrate further. Liang Cheng's pupils slightly contracted. Ignoring everything else, he directly stabbed his weapon into the guard's shoulder. His body was also pierced by the guard's long sword. Seeing him remain expressionless, the guard exclaimed in shock. In the next second, the guard burst forth with power. He flung Liang Cheng far away. Then he rushed into the room, calling out for his master. But as he struggled to open his eyes, he saw Amin pouncing with a sly grin. He immediately raised his sword and stabbed at Amin, pinning him hard against the wall. He demanded, "Who sent you?" Unexpectedly, Amin let out a cold laugh. He raised his head, his fangs viciously biting into the guard's neck. The guard let out a painful scream. But in no time, he turned into a dried-up corpse. Amin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His face was filled with extreme excitement. This familiar feeling had returned. In the next second, two enormous wings suddenly spread open. A torrent of wild energy poured out. The three were both shocked and delighted. Amin had actually regained his strength. After Amin retracted his wings, Feng Xinyang quickly stepped forward and asked, "When did you recover?" It must have been because of the master. Hearing this, Feng Xinyang's eyes widened with excitement. She turned her head, looking at the man with hunger in her eyes. The man was horrified. "What's with that look?" Only then did Xinyang restrain her emotions. She bowed and said, "Master, the fish has been caught. Let me take you back to rest." Soon after, in the inn's wine cellar, Liang Chen curiously looked at Amin lying in a coffin. "Does lying here aid your recovery? Not just life needs a sense of ritual. As a zombie. Shouldn't you understand that?" Liang Chen shook his head. "I don't. I just prefer a bed." Blind Bay was peeling an orange on the side. "You guys carry on. I'm going to interrogate you on Datu." Amin suddenly interrupted. "Let the master go." The two were instantly stunned. Blind Bay looked completely puzzled. The master wouldn't do such a thing. "In the end, it will still be pushed onto me." Amin looked indifferent. "I know, but I still want to respect his wishes." Blind Bay finally understood. "Is this why you regained your strength first? We agreed to act reserved together, but you secretly took the lead." Liang Chen stood blankly in place, with a thoughtful expression. 3 hours later, the man finished his bath. Just as he put on his clothes, he heard Liang Chen softly call out "Master" from behind. The man was startled and blurted, "What the heck?" He took several steps back. Seeing it was Liang Chen, he breathed a sigh of relief. People scaring people can really scare someone to death, especially when it's a real zombie. "Do you need something?" Liang Chen stared straight at him. Without saying a word, the man sighed helplessly. He stepped forward and patted his shoulder. "If something's wrong, you can talk to me. Although I can't do anything, but I'm definitely a good listener." In the next second, Liang Chen suddenly reached out, and firmly placed it on the man's shoulder. "Master, don't act on the next mission. It's too dangerous." The man was completely baffled. Why so emotional this late at night? But he still replied, "Got it. I'll go check how the interrogation is going. You think about your excuses for now." Liang Chen watched the man's back as he left and suddenly sat on the ground. "This is too embarrassing." Suddenly, at this moment, Liang Chen was shocked to discover his own strength had also returned. The next morning, Blind Bay was gesturing on the table with chopsticks. "We are now in a place called Tiger Head City. It belongs to the Northern Wind County of Yen Kingdom. Besides Northern Wind County, Yen Kingdom has 6 other counties, and Northern Wind County is Yen Kingdom's northern front line. 100 years ago, it was the battleground between Yen Kingdom and the desert barbarians. In the past century, there hasn't been a battle involving more than 10,000 soldiers between the two sides. On one hand, the barbarians split internally, and couldn't unify. On the other hand, Yen Kingdom faces the looming threat of Qian, Chu, and Jin kingdoms to the south, forcing Yen Kingdom to shift its focus to the central plains. Aside from some vassal states, today's world is dominated by the 4 major powers, Yen, Jin, Chu, and Qian. Moreover, this world has cultivators. There is magic, battle energy, and there are martial artists. All are ranked by 9 levels. 9 is the lowest, and 1 is supreme. As for the guard the master killed yesterday, he wasn't even ranked 9. Hearing this, the man felt a surge of boldness in his heart. "Tell me, what do you plan to do?" Blind Bay smiled slightly. "First, we'll make Tiger Head City the core to develop our power. As for what's next, that will be discussed later." After Blind Bay finished speaking, "That's my plan. Please, Master, correct me." The man thought for a moment. "I have no objections. Your plan is very well thought out. Master, you're so wise." The man was instantly speechless. That flattery was way too forced. He could only clear his throat, and replied, "If there's anything I can help with, just tell me directly." Blind Bay interrupted directly. "What I need is trust from you, Master. I trust you very much." "No, Master, you don't." "I really trust you." "No, Master, you don't." Suddenly, a dish of pickles flew up on its own, and landed in the bowl in front of Blind Bay. Blind Bay picked up the pickle and ate it in one bite. He murmured, "Thank you for your trust, Master." The man looked utterly confused. Is this guy mentally unstable? But Blind Bay wiped his mouth, and exuded a surge of spiritual energy. "I'm done licking. You all carry on." The woman named Feng Xinyang, together with 6 others, is called the 7 Great Demon Kings. She's a character from the man's comic, but now she has crossed over to this world with the man. Unfortunately, she has lost her powers, and has become an ordinary person. But ever since the man woke up from his coma, the vampire, the cultivator Xia Zibei, and the ancient zombie king have all regained their powers. The reason for their power recovery is all because they flattered the man. So Feng Xinyang came early to the man's room to wait. The man was startled, and asked her what she was doing there. Feng Xinyang blushed, saying she was just there to deliver clothes. During the man's 6-month coma, She had taken the time to make several outfits. As she spoke, Feng Xinyang took out the clothes and put them on the man. The man was deeply moved. I've been an orphan since childhood. No one has ever made clothes for me before. Hearing this, Feng Xinyang grabbed the man's hand. She looked at the man seriously. As long as you like it, master. Xinyang can play the role of your mother. The man affectionately called out, Xinyang. Feng Xinyang blushed, Master, what do you want to do to your mother? I will cooperate fully. Just then, Blind Bei suddenly walked in. Xinyang, enraged, threw a kettle at him. Stupid Bei, can't you knock before entering? That perfect atmosphere just now. I was about to have a son, and you ruined it just like that. Blind Bei helplessly cleared his throat. He knocked on the door again and said, Master, there's trouble at the inn. Moments later, the group arrived at the inn's main hall. The captain drew his sword and threatened them. The imperial army is about to march. Strong laborers are needed to transport supplies for the army. The strong men in your household must go. Xinyang looked worried. Captain Shui, my Ali has gone off with a caravan, and Amin is still sick. If he spreads his illness to the camp, what then? Captain Shui snorted coldly. Fine, those two are exempt, but the other two must serve. By noon tomorrow, gather at the camp outside the city. After Captain Shui left, the man rested his chin in thought. Blind Bei proposed packing up and leaving Tiger Head City tonight. But the man interrupted, let's just go. The group was stunned. Are we really going to serve? The man explained, the inn and our current status are the results of your efforts over the past 6 months. Axe Head City is also the first point in our plan. Abandoning it now would be too much of a loss. Besides, it's not yet time for rebellion. Blind Bei smiled slightly. As expected, the master is farsighted. With that, Blind Bei made sure to summon Shui San to accompany the man. Hearing this, Xinyang also wanted to go along. At least if I'm there, I can serve the master. Blind Bei immediately retorted. Are you planning to work on military plans? Xinyang nearly ground her silver teeth to pieces. She turned her head away and said nothing more. The next day, the three had just arrived at the camp. The zombie king Liangcheng noticed something was wrong. We're only responsible for transporting supplies. Logically, the main army should be ahead of us. But I don't see any signs of the army moving. Moreover, we just arrived, and they're already sending us to the battlefield. This doesn't feel right. Just then, Shui San suddenly appeared. Master, I've discovered a problem. I just took a lap around the surroundings. The supply carts we're transporting are all filled with stones. Hearing this, the man looked thoughtful. A few days later, the troops stationed themselves at the border of the military line. Liangcheng approached the man. He said he had a hunch. Something might happen tonight. The man looked puzzled. He asked if Liangcheng had noticed anything. Because the main imperial forces suddenly retreated. The remaining cavalry accompanying us is only a few hundred. And Liangcheng feels like they're monitoring the civilians transporting supplies. The man looked at the soup Shui San handed over, with a serious expression. It seems, we're being used as bait. As expected. At night, a soldier was patrolling. A figure suddenly appeared behind him. It covered his mouth with one hand, and slit his throat directly. Then these people began entering tents, taking lives. But when they reached the man's tent, a large, grayish-white hand suddenly reached out, and grabbed that person's neck. The one who acted was the ancient zombie king, Liangcheng. Others only heard a loud crack. Before they could react, they were killed instantly by Shui San, who suddenly appeared. At the same time, a barbarian squad was galloping toward the camp. The three hid in a corner amidst the chaos. Listening to the unending wails in the camp, Shui San worried about the master's safety, and suggested the man take the chance to escape. But the man suddenly asked, I remember barbarian heads can be exchanged for rewards, and also earn military merits, right? Shui San looked excited. Master, you truly have a dark heart. Just then, a barbarian suddenly spotted the three of them, and immediately rode toward the man. Liangchen quickly drew his blade to shield the man. Shui San darted behind the barbarian, and in an instant, slit the barbarian's throat. The warhorse, sensing its master was gravely injured, let out a loud neigh, and charged straight at Liangchen. Liangchen's pupils contracted slightly. His hands gathered a surge of blood-red energy. He then sent a massive fist flying forward. It landed directly on the warhorse's large face. The warhorse staggered and fell to the ground. Liangchen grabbed the barbarian's neck and pinned him to the ground. The man had already been prepared, and directly chopped off the barbarian's head with one stroke. At that moment, the ground suddenly began to shake. The thunderous sound of hooves approached. The imperial army finally arrived, striking like a mantis, stalking a cicada. The battle was about to erupt. The barbarians and the Yen soldiers faced each other. Watching as the imperial army stormed into the camp, Shui San looked displeased. They used civilians' lives as bait again, to trap the enemy in the pot. Suddenly, the sound of something cutting through the wind was heard. A spear shot swiftly toward the three. Master, watch out. Shui San hurriedly pushed the man to the ground. Only then did everyone see clearly. The one who threw it was a giant barbarian. His terrifying aura was enough to make anyone tremble. Without a word, Liangcheng drew his blade and charged at the barbarian. But sadly, with one slash. But it was blocked by the barbarian. In an instant, a surge of blue energy burst out. The man was shocked. Another glowing expert. he immediately ordered Shuai-san to assist. Don't worry about me. At this moment, Liang Chen was forced back several steps. The blade in his hand was broken by the opponent. The barbarian roared excitedly, "You've lost." Saying this, he lunged forward and slashed with his blade. Liang Chen slightly sidestepped to avoid it. But he murmured, "It doesn't matter. I was never good with swords anyway." The barbarian didn't respond. Instead, he used the spiked armor on his shoulder to ram into him. With a loud bang, Liang Chen took the hit head-on. But the barbarian was surprised. This guy could actually withstand my charge. Liang Chen responded with his hard and sharp claws. Liang Chen's strength exploded from his hands, directly piercing through the barbarian's chest. However, at that moment, a sharp sword whistled through the air, and embedded itself in Liang Chen's wrist. The man seized the chance to kick him away. The archer shouted, "Be careful. That guy is unusual. My swordsmanship can pierce through an ordinary person." And that person wasn't wearing armor on his hands, but it couldn't penetrate his arm. Before he could finish, Shuai-san suddenly appeared behind him, and drove two blades straight into his back, then dragged them forcefully to the ground. The barbarian was gravely injured on the spot. Another barbarian saw this. He angrily grabbed Liang Cheng's collar, and tried to slash him with one strike. But in the next second, the man was already behind him with a blade. The man was just about to strike, when his body suddenly stopped responding. Blood spurted from his mouth. This is clearly a sign of poisoning. The man instantly realized. It happened when Liang Cheng's claws pierced me earlier, but it was too late. The man's blade had already swung down fiercely. With a squelching sound, a headless body fell heavily to the ground. After finishing all this, the man felt his body weaken. He barely stayed upright by leaning on his blade. An unscathed Liang Cheng stepped forward, and pulled the man up with one hand. Looking at this ordinary person who had crossed into their world as their master, Liang Cheng recalled something Blind Bei once said, that I know you all look down on the master now, but never forget, we were all created by the master. If the real world is compared to a cage, the master was once locked inside that cage. Now, we only need to provide the master with an environment to grow freely. As the creator who made us, he will surely grow to lead us in the future, and become a leader truly worthy of our loyalty. Moments later, Shuai-san caught a big fish. This old man clearly holds a high status. Capturing him alive will surely earn more merit. The man's expression suddenly turned serious. He had seen what just happened. Hearing this, Shuai-san immediately understood, and pressed his blade against the old man's neck. Soon after, the Yen army began clearing the battlefield. The leading general spotted the three of them, and saw the head in the man's hand. The general suddenly became greedy. This barbarian elder is the greatest credit, and it was taken by these three civilians. But too bad, this credit is now mine. At the general's command, numerous soldiers rushed toward the three. But just then, a swift sword aura suddenly swept through. With a piercing sound, it ran through the general's body. The general immediately lost his life, and fell to the ground. Behind him was a cold-faced woman, riding a terrifying beast. She pointed at the man and said indifferently, "Clean that man up, and send him to my tent." They were the cruel and tyrannical 7 demon kings. But after crossing into this world, they became ordinary people. Some became top courtesans at inns. Some became storytellers at inns. Even the vampire progenitor became a brewer. But all this changed with the man's awakening. The 7 demon kings not only gradually regained their power, but also successfully took Tiger Head City as their base. Just now, the man was taken by a cross-dressing female general. While soaking in the bath, Shuai-san speculated, "Do you think the master might get involved with that general?" The zombie king Liang Cheng replied expressionlessly, "That woman isn't worthy of the master." Shuai-san looked speechless. What the heck? Are you flattering him this shamelessly now? If not for us, the master could marry the best woman in this world. Don't tell me you haven't noticed, Shuai-san. Are you saying how much of our strength can be restored? It depends on the master. Before the master awakened, we were just ordinary people. But since his awakening, not only have we recovered, but even he has become stronger than ordinary people. Meanwhile, the man arrived at the female general's tent. The female general bluntly offered 2 rewards. 1. Become a servant of the Li family. 2. Become the logistics officer of Tiger Head City. The man said without hesitation, "I choose the second option." Hearing this, Li Xiang's face darkened instantly. "Why?" "Because I can't leave my home in Tiger Head City." The man internally mocked, "I'd have to be crazy to become a servant in your house. With Tiger Head City as my base, my demon kings aren't to be trifled with." Meanwhile, vampire progenitor Amin stood in the middle of a pile of corpses. His body was covered in swords, knives, and axes. But he casually said, "The Hound Gang is taken care of. Next is the Tri-God Society. What about the Cart Gang outside the city?" Blind Bei stood up, "That's for Xinjiang to handle. Judging by the time, it should have already started." Elsewhere in the inn, the Cart Gang leader was hung up by Feng Xinjiang. He kept roaring, "Why, Feng Xinjiang, are you so alluring? Do you think you can take advantage of me that easily?" Meanwhile, The man, Liang Cheng, and Xue San were preparing to rest when they suddenly sensed someone approaching. A Manchu woman slowly approached with a group of people. She sat directly in front of the man. The woman handed a bottle of wine to the man. The man claimed to have caught a cold, and declined directly. The woman didn't mind. She raised her head and took a gulp, then calmly said, "The two children beside me are the grandchildren of Shachuobudu. I set out from the royal court, and rode quickly all the way to rescue them." Hearing this, the man's heart skipped a beat. The barbarian he killed earlier was indeed Shachuobudu. As expected, the woman stood up. "Your horses bear the mark of the Marquis of Shinbei's Li family. You are servants of the Li family." As she spoke, her face suddenly turned fierce. "I didn't expect you to hunt all the way here." The man was about to explain the misunderstanding. The next second, the wine bottle fell to the ground. The two barbarians who drank the wine fell to the ground in pain. The woman formed a hand seal. A green light from the barbarian curse lit up. The two barbarian corpses stood up, roaring. The next moment, they turned into fanged undead. The man couldn't help but poke Liang Cheng. "Is that one of your relatives? Go say hello." The undead bared their fangs and charged at the three with their claws raised. Seeing this, Liang Cheng removed his mouthguard, revealing even more menacing fangs. A roar with a unique tone came from his mouth. The magical sound echoed in the undead's minds. The woman was surprised to find her control over the undead was broken. She saw him place two fingers on his forehead. In an instant, she activated the barbarian curse. "I'll see what kind of force this is." One glance revealed. The overwhelming pressure of the ancient zombie king flooded the area. It was only then that the woman realized the undead weren't being controlled. Instead, they had submitted to that man. At that moment, Liang Cheng let out another roar and gave his command. In an instant, the two undead violently turned their heads. The next moment, they clenched their fists and charged at the woman. The woman quickly dodged to the side. She rushed to the two children and picked them up. But at that moment, Xue San suddenly appeared behind her. The sword was unavoidable. The woman suddenly shouted out in alarm. A burst of energy exploded from her cloak. It forced Xue San to retreat. The woman then took aim and seized the opportunity to dash out. Unbeknownst to her, the man had already blocked the only escape route. The man raised his large sword. He originally intended to just put on an act, but to his surprise, he actually charged at her. Once the arrow is on the bowstring, there's no turning back. As the sword was about to fall, the woman gritted her teeth and threw one of the children in front of her. The man was shocked. In a split second, he changed the blade's direction. A sharp snap sounded. The little girl was knocked away. The woman took the chance to grab the back of the sword and pressed the blade against the man's neck. But even so, the woman clenched her teeth. She realized she couldn't push the blade forward. His grip was so strong. It was terrifying. Meanwhile, the two undead had caught up. The woman had no choice but to leap high into the air. She jumped over the man's head and prepared to continue running. Unfortunately, Xue San had already reached behind him and drove his sword deeply into his back. Unexpectedly, the woman kicked Xue San in the stomach. Enduring the sharp pain, she used the force to jump far away again. Xue San originally intended to pursue, but Liang Cheng stopped him. It turned out controlling the two undead had already been the limit. Liang Cheng no longer had the strength to fight. If Xue San had gone after her, there would be no one to protect the man. After a while, the woman couldn't hold on any longer and stopped to rest. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Ai, what are the undead doing here?" The woman looked up and saw several masked figures. What happened to the young master? Where is the young princess? Upon hearing this, the woman knew they were her people. Where is your leader? Get him to gather the troops immediately. There are spies from the North Guard over there. Upon hearing this, several of them hurriedly left to report. But one of them stood still, not moving. His eyes were fixed on the knife on the woman's back. Soon after, the man handed a bottle of wine to Fan Li. "So, you recognized Xue San's dagger? You killed that woman?" "Yes, I killed her." Hearing this, the man sighed deeply. "I didn't expect Fan Li to follow the merchant caravan. Turns out she was a spy for the barbarians, and she just happened to run into that woman. And that's how the problem was solved." Fate truly works in mysterious ways. The next day, Zibei Ah Ming was discussing how to make money, but Feng Xinyan looked at him skeptically. "We're all time travelers. Why not just make some perfume or soap and sell it? It's that easy." As soon as she finished speaking, Feng Xinyan sensed the man's return. Soon after, everyone gathered together. Xia Zibei brought a roster of names. Earlier, he had formed a band of horse bandits outside the city. Now, the man had the official authorization. He could now make a big move. Liang Cheng also agreed. "We can't waste the 300 cavalry allocation for the Lord of Hodo City. We mustn't waste the 300 flags given to our leader." "Of course." "Next, the focus of our work should be on this matter. Xia Sandeli will take charge of consolidating the previous old factions. Xin Yang will first handle the training of the newly recruited ladies. We can select the best ones for specialized training." "Good time, Lord. There's still some time before we head to the official office. Practice some moves with the Lord first. Let the Lord guide you on your skills." After speaking, Xia Zibei finally asked the man if he had any suggestions. At this moment, Ah Ming suddenly raised his hand. "Wait, what about me? Xia Zibei smiled slightly. Your task is the most difficult. We need a lot of money to support 300 cavalry. Go and pick up the soap. 3 days later, the man rubbed his shoulder. 3 days of practice. I've been demoted for 3 days. It has indeed helped improve my physical strength. Soon after, he looked at Liang Cheng, who was wiping sweat beside him. Don't you want to come with me to the bath? No, I don't like hot water. After the man left, Ming asked Liang Cheng, hasn't your killing aura increased? No, I think the problem may not be on our side. Ming understood immediately. It seems that relying on ourselves is quite difficult. This path is highly likely to be a dead end. I think we need to try another way. As he said this, a bar of soap suddenly fell from Ming's body. The two of them suddenly felt a bit awkward. Ming cleared his throat. Take it, use it. I just developed it. When Yen Liangcheng bent down to pick it up, but he was just seen by Xia Zibei. Wow, you two have a really good relationship. The two hadn't reacted yet. Xia Zibei continued, remember to hold a meeting at Liang Pavilion tonight. There's nothing urgent. I'll leave first so I won't interrupt you two picking up soap. The big guy was originally the most honest among the 7 demon kings. But unexpectedly, as soon as he spoke, he said he wanted to kill the master. Upon hearing his words, the other 6 demon kings fell silent. It turned out the 7 demon kings had always wondered what their powers really had to do with the master. Since they had been persistently submissive to the master, everyone's powers had begun to recover, but they still couldn't improve further. Xia Zibei speculated, the recovery of the 7's strength is likely connected to the master's power. The 7 are like pets in an online game. Their level could never surpass the master's. So, when Fanli suggested killing the master, everyone's thoughts were different. But in the end, it was still the zombie. Wang Liangqing sighed, back when the 7 were just ordinary people. We promised to protect the master. Now, we've only regained a bit of strength, and we've already started becoming greedy. As he said this, Liang Cheng poured a glass of wine. Everyone, let's drink this glass of wine. Let's forget what was said just now. Upon hearing this, everyone fell silent. They all raised their glasses and drank in one go. After finishing the wine, Xia Zibei suddenly spoke up. Actually, everyone knows. The players will be consumed. The pets can't continue to exist. So, we must do everything we can to boost the master's power. The next day, everyone arrived at a canyon. They were preparing to find a teacher for the master. Shuesen looked displeased. We just agreed last night. And today, we've already found the target. You had this planned all along, didn't you? Xia Zibei smiled wryly. The wife of the city guard sent a maid to deliver the message to me. The maid also said, today, a low-ranking bandit is being escorted to Lin City for trial. Everyone immediately began to discuss among themselves. The low-ranking dancer is certainly enough to be a teacher for the master. Suddenly, Xia Zibei stood up. He shouted, the master is the chosen one. To follow the master's side is our lifetime honor. The others were suddenly stunned. The master isn't even here. What are you pretending for? But in the next moment, the man rode his horse and arrived in front of everyone. It was only then that the others realized. They angrily cursed Xia Zibei. You actually used mental probing techniques. The man then asked everyone, are you planning to find a teacher for me? Other families find tutors through connections and discuss pay. But when it comes to me, it turned into a forced situation where you pulled out knives to take it from me. But now, there's nothing I can do. The man had no choice but to agree. Xia Zibei immediately announced, everyone, get ready. This time, it's too complicated. Only 6 or 7 of us will take action. Got it? The others couldn't help but grumble, cursing the blind man in their minds. He doesn't even treat the master like a person. Soon, a prisoner cart escorted by a group of soldiers slowly came down from the valley. What was surprising that night was that another group took action first. The people in the cart quickly spoke up. It's the people of Beifeng Lushi. I know they've been secretly communicating with the barbarian tribes. They won't let me go. Unfilial son, quickly, take your men and leave. However, results were quickly seen. Wei Wangli suddenly drew his sword and charged directly at the enemy with a long blade. However, at that moment, a sound of the qin resonated in everyone's minds, overwhelming them. Xia Zibei was playing the arrow. The song was heart-wrenching. Where in the world can one find a soulmate? The other group immediately shifted their target and charged directly at Xia Zibei. Feng Xinyang let out a cold laugh. Countless threads instantly severed their necks. Liang Cheng impaled one through the chest with his hand. 8 of them bit into people and began to drain their blood. Shuesen even treated them like monkeys, playing with them. Fanli was carrying the low-ranking dancer and walking at the front. Meanwhile, Wang Li was defeated by an assassin. He lay on the ground, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. The assassin raised his knife and charged at Xia Zibei. Xia Zibei smiled contemptuously. His arrow gently swayed in his hands. The assassin was instantly turned into nothingness. The dancer was completely stunned. To defeat Li Zi, that assassin must have at least half the strength of a 9th-rank master. This blind man actually killed him so easily. At that moment, Wang Li suddenly crawled towards Xia Zibei. He asked, could you send a message to my wife for me? Xia Zibei smiled faintly. She was not raised by me. Do not worry, do not think about it. Soon, Fanli was charging forward, carrying someone. He ran straight into the lion's den. The man, who had been waiting here, waved his large hand. Ali, put the person on the horse. But Fanli ran excitedly. He didn't even hear the man's words. Soon, everyone returned to the inn. Xia Zibei was brushed off by a few people. The enemies took some time. Fortunately, Ali had sent the person back ahead of time. At that moment, Shuesan suddenly shouted, not again. It seems Ali was too hasty when returning to the city. This person seems to have been jolted to death. Xia Zibei quickly stepped forward to check the pulse. The man was also speechless. How does he look? Xia Zibei turned his head and looked at the man. Master, I'm a psychologist. However, this person is probably a lost cause. His pulse and breath are gone. Alright, let's just bury him. There's a flower bed in the backyard where flowers have always been planted. We'll chop him up and let him ferment to make fertilizer. The earlier group of people also. Is this the treatment? The man nodded and said, alright, let's go with this. Let's do it this way. I always feel like I don't fit in with this blind man. Is it because I'm not twisted enough? At that moment, the man suddenly climbed up. Xia Zibei brought him into the house. Your skills in the guancher technique are quite good. Let's have a good chat now. As long as you can teach our master martial arts, we will ensure your safety. The man let out a foolish laugh. Did I say I agree to be your master's teacher? Xin Yang immediately became displeased. The Confucians have seen too many heroes before torture, only for them to become cowards after the torture. But Xia Zibei stopped Xin Yang, who was about to strike. This is our master's teacher. Our master has taught us that we should honor the virtuous. However, I suddenly remembered that the wife of Wei Wangli, who patrolled the city the day before yesterday, owes me a coin for a divination. Excuse me, Xin Yang. Go ahead and kill his entire family now. The man immediately gritted his teeth in anger. Xia Zibei calmly turned around and apologized. I was just handling a bit of personal business. What did you say just now? Nothing. I said I could teach him classical Chinese. Xia Zibei turned and walked toward the door. Xin Yang, I thought about it. Killing someone over a coin isn't right. It's still not a good idea. As he spoke, Xia Zibei closed the door with a snap. Sir, you will live here from now on. I promise you. On the day our master achieves his rank, that will be the day you recover. At that time, you can go seek revenge on that so-called Bei Feng Lucier.